stories glow. Palm lantern ignite, where the tales will flow. Whispers of the night, under moonlit skies. Every word so bright, in your mind it lies. Palm lantern light guides you through the night. Every tale in sight makes your heart ignite.
Sophie had always felt like she was too much and never enough at the same time. It started when she was a kid, sitting at the kitchen table while her mother sighed over her homework. "You're so smart, Sophie, but why can't you just apply yourself?" She'd spend hours perfecting every project detail, only for her mother to flip through the pages absent-mindedly. "It's too much, sweetheart. No one's asking for all this." Then, when she did the bare minimum, exhausted from chasing perfection, she'd get another sigh. "Sophie, you're never going to get anywhere in life if you don't put in the effort." She was 8 when she first realized everything she did was wrong. By 12, she started pulling away, trying to become invisible. Maybe if she was quiet enough, obedient enough, she'd avoid the comments. But that was wrong too. "Why are you so distant? You used to be such a happy child. Honestly, it's like you're impossible to please." For her career, they didn't ask her what she wanted. They told her. "You'll study medicine," her mother said. "It's respectable, pays well, and you'll always have a job." "But I don't." "Enough, Sophie," her father cut in. "We know what's best for you." And that was that. She spent years trapped in a life that wasn't hers. She was sitting in lecture halls, drowning in textbooks she had no passion for, watching her classmates talk about their dreams while she just existed. Whenever she complained, her mother would sigh, shaking her head. "Do you know how lucky you are? Some people don't even have the chance to go to school." So Sophie shut up. She tried to be grateful. She tried to mold herself into the person they wanted, but it was never enough. She was too messy, too chaotic, and too impulsive. She was too boring and predictable when she tried to be neat, disciplined, and quiet. "You need to be more responsible," her father would say. Then, when she followed their rules, "Why don't you ever think for yourself?" She was suffocating under their expectations. They told her to get a job, so she did. But when she worked late, exhausted, all she got was, "Why are you never home? Family comes first." She was too fat, then too skinny, too loud, then too quiet. She is too smart for her good, but not smart enough to be successful. She had tried to be 1,000 different versions of herself. She had twisted, shrunk, expanded, and changed to fit into their perfect little box, and they hated every single one. At 19, Sophie was desperate for anything that felt like hers. Her parents had dictated her entire life. The school she attended, the clothes she wore, and the career she was supposed to have. They made every choice for her. And any time she tried to assert herself, she was met with a sigh, a shake of the head, or, on worse days, a scolding about how ungrateful she was. "Do you know how lucky you are, Sophie?" her mother would say. "We're setting you up for a good life. You'll thank us one day." But Sophie didn't feel lucky. She felt trapped. Then she met Jake. He was a 22-year-old student of English and literature, confident, smooth-talking, and made her feel like the most interesting person in the world. At first, he was everything she had ever wanted. "You're not like other girls your age," he told her one night, cigarette dangling from his lips. "You get things." And God, how she clung to those words. She wanted to be different, to be someone who wasn't just a puppet under her parents' control. Jake was a new kind of freedom, one she had never experienced before. He had his own place and his own car. He smoked and drank, and he stayed out late, without answering anyone. However, he was very focused on his studies, and wanted to be a famous writer. A naive girl, Sophie fell for him because she thought she was free. And, most importantly, he chose her. It didn't matter that her parents would have hated him. That made it even better. Being with Jake wasn't just about love, it was about rebellion. But rebellion isn't always freedom. Sometimes, it's just another kind of cage. The first time he made her doubt herself, she ignored it. She had seen the name Lisa on his phone, followed by a heart emoji. "Who's Lisa?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. Jake, in a calm manner, responded, "Relax. She's just a friend." Something inside her twisted. "Then why the heart?" He laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're so cute when you get jealous." It wasn't an answer, but she let it go, because he chose her, right? Then came the nights when he wouldn't text back. The times he'd cancel plans at the last minute with a lazy, "Something came up, babe." The moments when he'd get frustrated with her for asking too many questions. "Why do you have to make everything a big deal?" He'd snap. "I swear, sometimes you're just too much." That sentence destroyed her, because she had been hearing versions of it her entire life. "You're too dramatic, Sophie. You overthink everything. You just don't appreciate what we do for you." Jake wasn't just her boyfriend. He was an extension of the people she had been trying to escape. But instead of running, she tried harder. Maybe he wouldn't get annoyed if she was a little more easygoing. Maybe he'd love her more if she didn't ask too many questions. Maybe she'd finally be enough if she became exactly what he wanted. So, she made herself smaller. She didn't ask about Lisa again. She stopped bringing up the nights he disappeared. She laughed when he called her dramatic, even when it stung, because this was love. By the time she turned 21, Sophie was exhausted. Her parents still controlled her life. Jake controlled her emotions. And somewhere along the way, she had lost herself entirely. One night, after another argument with her mother, this time about her grades, she showed up at Jake's place, drained and looking for comfort. But Jake wasn't in the mood for her problems. "Jesus, Sophie," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "Do you ever stop complaining?" Her stomach twisted. "Sorry," she muttered, shrinking into herself. "I just needed to vent," he scoffed, standing up. "You always need something. It's exhausting." Her throat tightened. I thought you wanted to be there for me." Jake exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. "Not every second of every day. You're so needy, you know that." There it was again. "You always do this. You're being ridiculous. God, why can't you just be normal?" Jake leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. "I need a break from this damn relationship." Sophie felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Her vision blurred with unshed tears as she stared at him, her heart pounding. "But, you know I love you. I cherish you. You're all I have." Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. Jake sighed, shaking his head. "I just need a break to study for my exams, okay?" She wanted to argue, to scream, to demand why he could so easily discard her. But she didn't. She just nodded. Deep down, she still believed that if she was patient, if she proved herself worthy, he would come back. The breakup consumed her. It followed her like a shadow, seeping into her bones and poisoning everything. She couldn't focus. She barely made it through her 3rd year of medical school. When the pressure became unbearable, she changed her major to business administration because that was her passion. Without telling her parents, she stopped trying to make friends. She was tired of being judged, tired of never being enough. She came out first class and was hired by a big management company. She was the star of the company. 5 years passed, and she became successful in her career. Sophie was walking down the street when she saw Jake, his face larger than life, staring down at her from a billboard. Jake, famous, successful, and untouchable. Her heart stuttered. After all these years, she still ached at the sight of him. On impulse, she reached out. And when he picked up, he was friendly, casual, like they had never been anything more than distant acquaintances. They planned to meet for coffee. She spent hours preparing, choosing her outfit carefully, rehearsing her words, making sure she was the perfect version of herself. They finally met. The entire time they talked, she clung to his every word, laughing at all the right moments, waiting for him to see her again, to really see her. After their date, They wanted more. Months later, they were back together. This time, Sophie told herself it would be different, but Jake had no idea she had never finished medical school, and that was the reason he was back to talking to her. And when he found out, his disappointment was like a knife to the gut. "You quit." His voice was sharp with disbelief. "I thought you were better than that. And this was why I wanted you back." The shame was suffocating. Desperate to prove herself, she promised to go back. But Sophie had found her calling elsewhere. She had a passion for management, a gift for strategy. She quit her job and begged Jake for her to be his PA. Months later, she started overseeing Jake's career while attending school, and under her guidance, he became a global phenomenon. 5 best-selling books, international recognition. After several months of managing Jake, Sophia and Jake agreed that she shouldn't return to med school. But every time Jake would use it to mock her and tear her down. But he was making it big in his career, all because of her. And then, she saw the headline. Jake got his co-Thor pregnant. Her stomach twisted as she read the words over and over again, the betrayal slamming into her like a tidal wave. When she confronted him, he was remorseful, tears in his eyes, hands gripping hers. "She meant nothing to me, Sophie. You know you're the only one who truly matters." And she forgave him, because wasn't that what love was? She buried herself in managing his career, sacrificing her own dreams. Her parents, though disappointed she never finished medical school, were proud of what she had become. It should have been enough. It wasn't. Months later, another headline, another woman, another pregnancy. The news spread like wildfire. Her parents were furious. "You couldn't even keep a man," her mother hissed. "You should have seen this coming." Jake, once again, spun a story of deception. "She trapped me, Sophie. You know I only love you." And for the second time, she forgave him. She convinced herself that love meant endurance. She was wrong. One evening on a book tour, Jake proposed, a grand spectacle. Cameras, flashing lights. Sophie knew it wasn't right, but she said yes anyway, because it was easier. Because her parents would approve. Because Jake was her first love. They got married. Jake already had 2 children by other women. But Sophie convinced herself that love was about patience, about understanding. She twisted herself into different shapes, trying to be the woman he needed, the woman he would never leave. A year later, she had a son. But Jake never stopped demanding more of her. He kept shaping her into what he wanted. One day, the final blow came. Another scandal, another woman. Twins. And this time, she was fed up. The public disgrace was unbearable. Sophie felt the weight of shame crushing her from all sides. She packed her things and left, taking their son with her. She returned to her parents' house, only to be met with more blame. "This is your fault," her mother said coldly. "You should have done more to keep your marriage together." Something inside, Sophie snapped. For years, she had held it in, swallowed her pain, bit her tongue. Not this time. She stood in the middle of the room, tears streaming down her face, voice shaking as she spoke. "You broke me," she stated like a poem. Her parents froze. "You made me believe I was never enough. Never enough. I wore the mask. I played the part. I swallowed the words that burned in my heart. Too smart, too dumb, too weak, too strong. I spent my whole life being told I was wrong. You shaped me, you caged me, then asked why I hid. You told me to shine, then said, I shone too much. I bent, I broke, I twisted, I shrank. Still, I was never the perfect daughter. But no more, no more. I refuse to obey. I won't live my life as a price you don't pay. 1,000 pieces of me that you tore apart. And now I take every single one back to my heart." She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "But you know what? I'm done." The room fell into stunned silence. "I don't owe you anything." And with that, she left. With the help of her therapist, she was able to get herself back with her son. She threw herself into work, using everything she had learned, managing Jake's career to build her own talent agency. Within 2 years, she produced 6 superstars across different industries. One of her artists won a Grammy. She became a king in the entertainment world. Jake's career crumbled. Without her, his scandals caught up to him. His books stopped selling. He was no longer the superstar she had made him. One day, he visited her. "Can I be part of your company?" His voice was small, defeated. She laughed. No, and sent him out. Her parents, too, came begging. "We're sorry," they said. "We miss you." She forgave them for the sake of her son, but she never let them back in. She wrote a song, her story, her truth. One of her artists produced it, and it became an anthem. 1,000 versions of me, until I became the one I was meant to be. The song helped individuals struggling with identity crisis. 10 years later, Sophie stood on the stage of an international award show with her son. She had become a global powerhouse. The little girl, who had once been too much and never enough, had become unstoppable. And this time, she belonged to no one but herself.
Underneath the stars, worlds begin to